Your pants.
Nothing is being nothing is being hidden. Is what I'm getting at.
If you say so.
You know what? Moving off on the subject. This is getting creepy.
Yeah. You're the one that brought it up. I was just talking about whether or not we were live, and now you've got to fly all in these weird directions and stuff. I don't understand you.
Before we go into the topics at hand, I want to just bring up this. I guess this is a weekly thing now, where I talk about the progress of the podcast and where we are. So far, you can find us and download us on your closest Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. I have not. I have not put us anywhere else yet because I haven't had the time to look into those situations. But I think that everything I said is correct, that you can find us at those three places, and also live on twitch.tv / the Game Hunter 09. You'll find us live here every Monday at around 9. And if you skip a Monday, life got in the way. Things happened. Things spiraled out of control. But
well, it's 2020.
It's 2021. But
the decade is 2020s. The whole decade's going to be the same.
I hope not. I don't want to be in this pandemic any longer than we have to. That got too real. Okay, so I think with that, we have another subscriber within the 2 weeks that we were away. So welcome. Well, that's subscriber follower. As of right now, we haven't had any new downloads, but I feel like it's gonna change once this one goes live. So thank you for everybody who's willing to willing to listen to us talk about anime. Things that apparently people are willing to watch us talk about. Well, not listen to us talk about. So I guess without further ado, let's go on to My Hero Academia episodes 95 and 96, I believe.
We're doing 2?
I thought we were doubling up.
Okay. I keep forgetting that we didn't talk about the other one yet.
I mean, we don't have to talk about 95.
Oh my god, let's go for it. Let's strap in.
Okay. Awkward. Okay, episode 95. It's called Match 3, and
for those of you listening at home, we're highly trained professionals. Don't try this podcasting thing at home.
If this is a professional job, Lord help us.
Oh yeah, this is how I make money.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. I have bets with people.
How dare you?
I have high stake bets with people before the podcast starts about whether or not you'll hang up on me.
Are you threatening me?
No, I'm saying, please. You don't know if it's going to make me money or not.
Episode 95 of the My Hero Academia anime. Pretty much we begin with the aftermath of the last match, and we have Neto Monoma constantly berating Class 1A, and nobody cares, and Tendo comes in and karate chops the back of his neck like usual. I mean, nothing out of the normal at that state of affair.
I feel like he's that one guy on Twitter that you report, but he's not doing anything technically wrong.
He's just annoying. I mean, it doesn't really matter if he's doing anything technically wrong. He's just annoying. I think he's just there to be hated on, which is surprising considering that's Grape Juice's job.
He's there to show Class A that Class B doesn't really hate them, because it forces Class B to repeatedly say that he doesn't represent what they feel, and then everybody cheers Kendo on.
Yeah, that's true. And they have Class 1A is talking with amongst themselves. While Deku's writing in his notebook. All Might comes right behind him and pulls him away. And as again we have the class gossiping amongst themselves about why All Might seems to be taking a liking to Deku. They don't know that they both shared a quirk at once. So it's over Bakugo, who, as they're talking, will walk up on them behind them, saying, "You're doing a bad job at hiding your relationship."
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least before that, they start conversing about One for All. I think in it's either this episode or episode prior they bring up that oh, I guess they bring it up in this episode that the last time Deku's quirk did something weird. It was when he was fighting I wish he had a hero name. Why doesn't he have a hero name? Uh, the guy with the brainwashing quirk. He really should have a hero name by this point, but he doesn't. Shinzo is his name. The last time his quirk did something really weird was when he fought Shinzo and when he had brainwashed him. So the bring that bring up that might be a problem. So All Might is just warning him to be careful. It's just kind of funny that like All Might's being berated by Bakugo too.
Mm-hmm.
The dynamic has changed. And Bakugo's now asking why. I mean, we're kind of talking about this as it's happening, but like Bakugo's first talking with Deku now about what's he talking about here, and he's also Deku brings up the fact that his quirk kind of like went out of control when he was asleep. Bakugo in his own Bakugo way is just I guess checking to see if he's okay, and I guess is the best way to put it. I guess as for quirk evolutions, I don't know what Bakugo's capable of doing now because he's been off the scene, off the case for a while.
You think they're doing that on purpose so that they can pull some like reveals?
Probably. Well, I mean, granted, not many of the Class 1A characters have been doing anything new recently.
Yeah, but you're still learning about like 1A like little tricks and things like Ida pulled his motor off so he could grow a new one, and that's like the big plot twist of this episode. So people are still learning things. I think that's kind of cool. That's why I was disappointed with Froppy and a couple of the other characters, the like Kendo, because I really wanted to see some new twists with them, but we didn't get to see any.
Well, I look at it like this. They're still kids. They're going to school. I mean, if there was a fanfic out there of everybody as an adult, I'm pretty sure every character will gotten some cool power up. Because I can think of some characters with certain like cool power ups. I mean, I thought about like Uraraka in the future and what her power could evolve into. So I'm still on that whole like she should be able to like pretty much just like make things heavier. But I mean, that's just a pipe dream. But I think pretty much with that, they had a conversation. Bakugo is being Bakugo. Now we switch over to the now we got the boring things out of the way. We switch over to the start of the new match, which is Todoroki, Ida, Tailman. I'm missing somebody, and I'm waiting for an. Oh yeah, Shoji. I forgot all about that man. The guy with the tentacle arms.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah,
They don't do much with him, but I like him.
not that big of a fan. He seems kind of serious all the time, which is really weird. But granted, it doesn't help that he doesn't have a mouth, unless he's using his limbs.
Yeah. Do we know he doesn't have a mouth? It's always covered.
I'm pretty sure he has a mouth. There's no way he doesn't have a mouth.
Maybe that's like the source of some sort of weird plot twist. Like he's gonna like take it off or something. It's gonna be you know.
It'd just be creepy.
You want me to do that noise again?
No, I don't know. No, please don't. I love everything. Just don't deep throat your mic for everything that is.
All right, I will take pity on you.
But as they're about to get rear up for the match 3, Tokiyami is having a conversation with Todoroki about like how their mentors or heroes working together right now. They have some authority to. Shoto has some authority to pick up after Tsukiyomi's like mistake, which is kind of funny because we find out by the end of this when they have a tie and everybody is disappointed in how they did, which shows some growth. But we see them walking in as we speed up with this. We see them walking in. Essentially, we now Ida's talking with Shoto. He's saying that he notices that something is on Shoto's mind, and like pretty much people are making fun of the fact that his face doesn't really change that much. We also start seeing each person's like I guess working towards their goal, and Ida is trying to take on his older brother's name in Genium because He may be coming. His brother may be healing, but it looks like he probably will never be returning to being a hero again.
Right.
So we start seeing the the fruits of Ida becoming Ingenium, which is awesome. Then, for the longest time, we were going to see more of that. I guess something interesting plot twist related with Ida is in the next episode, where they're still in the middle of the fight. We start seeing some of what he learned from him fighting Stain, which is awesome. And he starts like thinking like a hero, like Stain said. Which is kind of funny that he's using what he learned from Stain to in a mock battle. I guess before we move on,
Stan's a really smart neutral, though. That makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah, I just didn't think he was going to be him. But I guess before we move on, we're going to talk about the other four: Tetsu, Drillman, Pony, and Mudman. I think is what his real name is. These guys actually worked really well together for being a ragtag group of individuals.
Yeah, they did. I thought Drillman was kind of like the expendable, and he was one of the first to get captured. He was really, really basic, and he didn't seem to have any creative like secondary use to his drills or anything that would make them really cool. So I think they needed him because they needed someone to come in and fight, but I didn't think he was going to be very much of a big deal.
Well, he should have used his rotation a little bit more to build up energy. It's kind of the same principle behind speed. It doesn't really matter if you have enough rotational power; he can overcome just about anything. But he didn't do that because I think he was just depending strictly on his equipped weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I like to point out that I always had an issue with people comparing Tetsu and Kirishima because I feel like their quirks maybe at the very principle the same, but I really believe they're really both different. I think this is an episode. This fight really showcases that their quirks are definitely different. They may look the same on the base level, but like I want to point out that Kirishima can make his quirk. He can make his skin harder, which makes him pretty much a shield in a way. But he can also keep making his skin denser, which makes it be able to take more damage. On the other hand, Tetsu I think only has an on and off. I don't think he can make he can temper his steel, which is what he did in his training, where he sat in fire. Ironically, the fire he was sitting in wasn't as hot as the fire that Shoto can make, which is ironic.
Shoto's still holding back.
I don't know if he was holding back because it seemed like he was having some problems with the heat that he was producing. It looked like he was going dizzy from just how much fire he was putting out. Now, granted, that also had to do with the fact that he wasn't cooling himself off. But I still don't understand why he needed Mudman, or was he fighting? No, Tetsu's to back off for him to use ice to cool himself off. It didn't make sense to me.
I thought it was interesting that two things. One of them, I thought it was interesting that he was using both abilities without much of a inner struggle. I mean, they did do a quick flashback a couple times and stuff, but like he seemed pretty comfortable using both powers, which was really just a little bit faster than I would have expected. Not like overwhelmingly faster.
Well,
and then the other thing is, I wonder how long he's been doing it, because I bet he's not very experienced at using the fire side, and I bet he could have gone hotter if he'd had a little more development and practice. And you also still don't see him ever use them in conjunction. He still treats them like two separate powers rather than trying to like combine them. Like, I don't know, create steam. Ice and fire like together would make steam, and you could make some cover to escape in a situation like that where he's got to put distance between him and the other guy. If he was able to start combining his powers, I think it'd be really cool. The only time we've ever seen that was the time that he like used one to adjust the body temperature of the other, so he could go all out a little bit more. And I think he did that in the last big tournament.
The explosion he created was when he combined both powers.
What?
That explosion in the tournament that he had with Deku and him clash, that was the combination of his powers. The rapid expansion and de-expansion of his of the heat around.
I just mean, like, if the guy was coming at him, he needed to put space between them. If he filled the arena with steam using both of his powers, slicked the ground so that he had like kind of a skate area, and used the fire to like boost himself away like a Batman kind of like Batmobile engine, then he could have gotten out of there. But he doesn't. He hasn't have much experience with the fire ability, and he has almost no experience except with like blunt force with using them in conjunction with each other. But that should have been something he would be very capable of doing.
I think a lot of it has to do with it. I don't think he. He has experience using his fire quirk because we keep on seeing flashbacks of him training with his father, and his father teaching him how to use his fire side. I think a lot of it is just he hasn't. It's like a muscle. He hasn't been using it, and I think they did a good example of like a quirk is a muscle in this universe anyway, because of the fantastical nature of the power. So I mean, it's a combination of him not
Well,
having
it's also the
experience,
fact
but
that
also
like
just the lack of a muscle.
it's also the fact that they've all developed their skills since they've joined Class 1A. And in his case, he hasn't really developed that skill because he hasn't been using it. I think he has a lot of room. I think he's, to some extent, he still plays. In some ways, he's one of the most experienced, sophisticated heroes. In other ways, he's still got huge room for growth and improvement. Probably more potential for improvement than any of the other characters, except possibly Deku.
Yes, I guess speaking of powers, I guess we can talk about the elephant in the room, or I guess the pony in the room with
How
1B.
little involvement Froppy had in these episodes.
What?
How little involvement Froppy had in these episodes. That's the elephant in the room for me.
We're gonna talk about. I think I think one was notable because we brought up like you brought up how unremarkable this drill man was. I still find him kind of cool. I find him a little bit cooler than Shoji, but that's just me. I think it's just easy to impress me. But I guess one person's quirk which is interesting was Mudman. Um, they keep bringing up how flexible he was, and I guess it kind of comes down to his quirk and his quirk being softening, which he can make the area around him soft or permeable, so he can go in and out, which really makes physical quirks useless. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, he should be a 1A. I thought when I was watching it, I was like, this guy's too good to be Class B.
Well, I think the idea is they're all class one. It's just that because there were too many students that applied, that they had to split things in half.
Ugh, 1B seems like they're always a little bit weaker though. I think 1A is like the true elites, and 1B is like everybody else.
I don't know. I feel like 1B and 1A are like they're on the same level. The only thing that makes class 1A different than 1B is that they've had on the job experience. 1B doesn't, and this is because for whatever reason 1A seems to be always in the wrong time, in the wrong place at the right time when a villain shows up. In
Mm-hmm.
1B, I feel like 1B, if they had a chance to be in a situation like that, I feel like they could excel. I mean, at least Kendo, Mudman, um, they make the lizard girl. Well, I shouldn't say lizard girl. The girl at the end of next episode where they are setting up for the next match with Bakugo. They say she got in by recommendations. She was the other student in 1B that got in by recommendations. I don't
Yeah,
know who the other one was though. I know they mentioned it.
yeah, I forget now too. They've told them both now though.
Yeah, so there was just four students that got in by recommendation. I just don't know who. I thought it might have been Kendo, but I don't think it's Kendo because they would have brought that back. They would have brought that up if it was Kendo that got in by recommendation. But I guess now looking at her, the girl, her name is Pony Tsunatori, the girl with the horn cannons, who apparently her running gimmick is that she's always that it's a surprise when she speaks English. Which, by the way, Mudman can speak English too. It always shocks me because it's not that it's uncommon that in Japanese subs that English can be spoken, but you don't see it a lot. So whoever the voice actor is, I give them kudos for being able to actually speak clear English.
Mm.
Uh, I guess about it. I guess help everybody. So I guess like as we're going further in episode 95, the main draw of episode 95 is the fight between Tetsu and Shoto, who I'm gonna say right much. I wasn't expecting much out of Tetsu in this fight, but it seems very evident that Tetsu could be the counter in a real situation, to somebody like Tetsu could be really bad for him.
Uh-huh.
Considering that, like, well, if Tetsu could turn his quirk and metal into steel and be able to withstand heat like that, it'd probably really bad. If anything, Tetsu would be really good in a situation where, he could rescue people out of a burning building and sustain very little damage to himself.
Hmm.
I also want to bring
I
this up
still
because
think that he. I still think that he wasn't creative enough with his quirk, though. Like, he always goes brute force with it and just makes like a room full of ice, but you never see him try to do anything more subtle or nuanced with it. I think if he had something a little more subtle or like clever that he could do with it, then maybe he'd have a little more help. You know,
you talking about Todoroki.
Shoto. So when he's going,
You talking about icy hot and you talking about icy hot.
yeah,
Okay, this I don't know
I'm
how he can
sorry.
be subtle with ice. The man literally this man can clear a room by turning it into an ice person.
Okay, but we know that ice doesn't do a hell of a lot to this guy. So why don't you start using the arena to your advantage? Like start pulling things down from like the side and knocking them on him, or you know what I mean, taking out the floor or something like that. Why do you have to like just fill up areas with ice when it's not working?
I don't think
He's
he
like, I'm
can
going to
throw
shoot
ice
ice at
though.
you, and then that didn't work. Okay, I'm going to shoot fire at you, and then that didn't work, and then he was pretty much done for. Like there's a lot of other things he could have been doing. He could have been using it to improve his mobility. Maybe he could fly with it. You know what I mean? Maybe he could, or lift himself up in the ground. Maybe he could make an ice spike that like shoots up from underneath Tetsu and like rockets him into the sky. Like you see Toph do that with earthbending in Avatar. Why not him do something exactly like that with his ice?
I mean, I think he's done it, but at the same time, I don't think Shoto can just project ice a la Iceman. He's never
He can
displayed.
cause
He's
ice
never.
to lift up from the ground, right? So why doesn't he just do it under the guy's feet and like shoot him up in the air?
I guess, but who's to say that that wouldn't work? I mean, we don't know how heavy Tetsu is when he's covered in metal. Uh, so I don't know. I mean, granted, yeah. I mean, why not try just to see if he could? But
Hmm.
I mean, he's still trying to learn how to use both sides of his quirk. He's just
Right.
been using one side.
If he could make ice that's slick, then he could make the ground slippery, and Mudman can't do anything about that. If the goal is to make the ground hard to run on, like, and Mudman makes it even harder to run on, that's not going to help. So if he could own up on that and just make slick ice under Tetsu's feet, and then Tetsu would have trouble running. Like there's just stuff that he could have done that he just seemed to neglect doing because of a lack of creativity. I think he's so used to being able to brute his way through that like it's harder for him to think in more subtle ways.
I don't know. I mean, my man brought up that he should have just like covered the entire area in fire, and that would have prevented him from being able to do anything. Which is an
If
odd
he
thing
covered the
for
entire yeah,
which is an
if
odd
he
thing for
covered the
him to say.
entire area of fire too, he could have used it to escape. But he dug his feet into the ground, even though the guy was coming at him, and he needed to put distance between them. Like he dug his feet into the ground and didn't try to get away.
But I don't think he intended. I don't think he intended the fire to make it, like the amount of fire he was producing to weaken his mental capacity. Well, not mental capacity, but his ability to stand. I was surprised at how little his flame fortitude was, because one of the bigger things that Endeavor was always saying was the main reason why he wanted Shoto in the first place, because he needed somebody that could actually produce flame without nearly killing himself.
Right.
Um, he also brings up in the flashback that apparently his son, who we now know is missing, Toya, was very close, but he possessed the weak constitution of his mother. This is very choice wording, so I had no idea what that means. But also Endeavor has brought the fact that he's hiding his true strength, which is what you said before. I I could agree, but I don't really know 100% because like I'm not sure how much of his quirk is fire and how much of his quirk is ice. They make it seem like
Mhm.
it's 50-50, but I don't know how true that is. I will also, speaking of the fire, I love it when I do see him use it because I just love the way the fire comes off of his body. It's like the coolest trick I've ever seen. It's really cool looking.
Does it
I mean,
turn you on?
I'm gonna just plead the fifth on that one, but I like the way it looks. As far as animation, I will say it's really cool. I guess speaking of animation, we can move on to episode 96. Which actually no, before we move on there, the last little bit of the end of the episode, Mudman traps Ida in the ground because Ida can run, so he figures that Mudman said he's just gonna soften the ground and let him fall into it. This is when we find out Ida's family secret. Apparently, they can remove the pipes on their feet, which is really painful. It looked painful, considering Ida had to have a towel in his mouth to even rip them out of his out of his thigh muscle.
Right.
Ow! But such that he grew new ones full of training, and now he can do something called Reciprocal Turbo, which at first he made it seem like doing that removed his time limit, but all it really did was just increase it. So now he can do that for 10 minutes before he burns out. Which he is, I mean, now he can move nonstop without really stopping. Which I guess want to bring up was when I talk about animation. That reminded me when he was running around doing all that. Reminded me so much of Deku, just only if Deku was using his feet.
Hmm.
The
They
speed at which
mentioned
he
that
was.
they mentioned that he's got to kick it up a notch now that Deco's become a foot-based like hero. That inspired him to
Well,
take it to the next level.
yeah, that's understandable. At the same time, Deku isn't just going to use his feet. He's already kind of stated that he's just trying to limit the amount of damage he's doing to his hands.
Yeah.
So if anything, Deku's going to be an all-around using his feet and his hands in combat. Um, I think he's just going to limit the hard-hitting moves of his feet, which makes sense. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of inspired him. Granted, funny enough, after you say that, they also Deku mentions that I gotta have Ida teach me how to kick again. So all it's
Yeah.
gonna really do is just push Ida further. But I do love that, like it is doing what I was hoping he was gonna do, which is start moving faster. Unfortunately, I don't know if if they'll ever get to a point where Ida might be able to have a pseudo speed force. I don't think he will, considering the aspects of the Speed Force anyway. Uh, that little bit of DC Comics put in here aside, it was really cool. The animation was very reminiscent of Deku. I think they did it on purpose. There was so many Mudman couldn't keep up with them. It got so bad that Mudman said, "I'm gonna get out of here. I could not deal with this guy. He's like his combat. He's got me ahead on combat." He also mentioned as he was leaving that it was probably a bad idea to leave Ida um to his own devices,
Mhm.
which kind of comes true later on. Um, and Ida manages to capture Drill Man as he's fighting Tailman, which I like to point out. They kept on the words Tailman was fighting so normal kept coming up. Um, I don't know. I don't know what that was about. I don't know how abnormal he could fight. His tail could be used as an extra limb, but that's about it. I was actually expecting to see a whole new use for that thing, but other than what he did use it for, to help Shoji get free. Not much was done with it. I would say that, I guess speaking of combos, Shoji and him are actually a really good combo when it came to trying to fight Pony, and that's probably about it actually. Pony, because Mudman was hard to get a hold of. I would say that guy's quirk ridiculous. Like he is so nice, but his quirk is so mean.
The
Like
Mudman guy.
yeah, the guy
Yeah.
is
The only
very nice.
I know this is a favorite of yours. The only guy that I've seen that I think would have been able to be a really easy beat for this is the blonde guy that's a lot like Deku.
Who?
What's his name? Not Midoriya, but begins with an M. From the class above him.
Miorio?
Mirio, thank you. Yeah, Mirio is the only one I think that could have made like short work of this guy.
I don't. I don't know because he would. I don't know if he could he permeate all that even when it was soft. 'Cause I don't know.
Uh,
Like I don't know like how deep on the level his ability to go through items is when it comes to. Cause we've only ever seen him do it on a solid object, not like one that's moving around and constantly being turned from soft to hard. I really hate talking about this quirk now that I'm realizing it. Granted, I will say I think Miro probably would make sure work with him regardless, just because like I mean he was dealing with Chisaki really easily when he lost his quirk. Man,
Yeah.
he was yelling power every time he was using a lariat. I guess we can talk about Shoji in this fight. Not much was happening here other than his excellent surveillance skills.
Yeah, Shoji didn't get much done at all, did he?
No, not really. Uh,
He wasn't bad. He just didn't have a lot to bring to the table, I thought. Which is sad because I really like him. But yeah, I couldn't feel impressed by anything. He was just kind of there.
well, yeah, when you have Ida running at Mach 10, I mean, at this point,
Ida was definitely, I think, the MVP here.
I would say him and Shoto. I mean, were like they did well for what they had at their disposal. I think
It's
Ida
kind
had
of like
more.
I knew that Shoji was going to be great, but when I was watching things happen, like it was Ida that was the one that seemed like he did better than I expected.
I think Ida had more to do here because he needed to essentially, as you said before, he was falling to the back of the of the class and things that he accomplished, and you know being the class rep, he also needed to improve that as well. And we start seeing that he had been paying attention to all the people. I mean, they may not listen to him all that much, but they do have a certain respect for Ida. It may not be on the same level as respect that Kuan B has for Kendo, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, but I
Um,
was happy to see him. I was happy to see him kind of pull out and do a good job. So I don't
I
know.
mean,
It was better than I had expected. Like he did better than I expected, and Shoto didn't do as well as I expected.
but I don't think I don't think like it was his time to really because he's still working. I mean, we saw in those like flashbacks, he didn't know why he was having flashbacks to his training with his father because those were some really dark times for him. I don't know why it made it seem like he was starting to draw back on those memories of that attack that his father used, uh, especially when he saw it used for the I guess based on the way he reacted back in season 4 when he father first used it to take care of that Nomu that that I guess he never saw it before. I guess is maybe what I got is the vibe I got from it. And then when he tried to use it here, he couldn't because Mudman showed up and knocked him out because of something that fell from Prince fell on him from one of the surrounding buildings around him.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't get a chance to really use Prominence Burn. I felt like if he gotten a chance, I feel like he could have ended that entire quarrel right there and then, which is probably why they didn't allow him to use it.
Yeah, but again, it wouldn't have been because he was the more talented hero. It would just been brute force. Like I really think that this brought out to me that he needs to start moving beyond brute force and like becoming more nuanced because like everybody's starting to catch up with the brute force part. It's nice that he's starting to use fire now and that it's not like one hand tied behind his back. But sooner or later he's going to hit a situation where he just can't be counting on the fact that he's sort of overpowered compared to some of the others.
The thing that make that I don't know how he could be nuanced with ice, and I don't even think his fire ability is like because what you're looking for is something I don't think he can do. Not even with training. I don't think he has cryokinesis. I think that's what you want him to have, but I don't think he has it.
I've seen him do things like create like frost and stuff. Remember when the first season?
Yeah, but I'm talking about like controlling it to the point where when he makes it, he can as it's being created, he's able to control. I don't think that's something that's in his ability. I
I
mean,
don't
maybe it's
necessarily think it's in
there.
his ability, but I think he can create. If he can create a wall of ice, then he can create a pillar of ice. If he creates a wall of ice, then he can create a spike of ice. If he can damage something with ice, then maybe he can knock something over with ice or weigh it down so it falls. I just think that he's not.
I feel like it takes
I
like a really fine tuned control of over ice, and that's why I feel like that would require cryokinesis versus just making ice, which is what he's doing. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I just feel like what you're looking for, like what that is essentially cryokinesis, control over the ice as it's being made. I guess like ice bending, which waterbenders do. But I don't know. Maybe he could. I don't know. I feel like that sounds like something in the realm of cryokinesis, but I don't think it's something that he has. I think it's the same concept like with the fire. I don't think he has pyrokinesis because if he did, we would have already seen it. So that means like
Yeah.
Endeavor has pyrokinesis. Let me look that up real quick. Because I don't know what you consider that actually. If I mean, granted, there were definitely scenes where his ice looked all blocky, like he was creating it as he was throwing it out there. But I don't know. I just feel like it would require, I guess, a control over it as it's being made. It almost seems like he just launches it after it comes out, and that's about it.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. Endeavor is a pyrokinetic. Wait. Does that mean Shoto's is like, does he have pyro and cryokinesis? Wait a minute. Have fire allows them to generate ice, frost, cold, and the rest of his body. He's unable. However, the user is unable to manipulate either element, only limiting producing and creating them. Yeah, he can't manipulate, so he isn't a kinetic, at least yet. Maybe being a fusion of both elements is what's preventing him from being able to utilize one element all the way. Because a kinetic is just a person who specializes in an element and can manipulate it. Shoto
Right.
just has both powers. I mean, then again, it says however the user is unable to manipulate either element, so that could either mean that he just doesn't have the ability to control it yet. So maybe he can. I don't know. Maybe it's something he needs to work on. Is maybe learning how to manipulate the element after it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is news. This isn't news, but apparently Shoto can also almost give himself frostbite if he doesn't use the fire side. Kind of makes me think. I wonder if his mother is the ice side. I wonder if her quirk is dangerous because she could lower her body temperature to the point where she would die.
I imagine that they could, right? They may be a little more resilient or something like that. But I imagine that you would be able to do it, especially since you can see him. It seems to be the nature of the limitations of his ability, right?
Yeah, but based on what I'm reading here, I don't know. It make it seem like because I just read his father's a pyrokinetic, so that must mean his mother must be a cryokinetic. So in theory, the son, the child that they produce should also be a kinetic for both variations, but maybe the union weakened it. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I guess at the same time, there's gotta be a limitation to Shoto. He just can't be God Almighty in this show. There's gotta be a limit. Maybe the limit is being unable to control it. Because all you have seen him do is produce it and shoot it out. That's about it. Like after the fact, like because like a kinetic can. after they shoot something out, they can like manipulate it and like either return it back to the state it was before, or make it more powerful. It's kind of like Iceman, for instance. Like kind of the nuance you're looking for is like I think Iceman is an example. I think of a nuanced ice power character. He's doing
Hmm.
more with his ice than just using it for combat. Because every time we've seen Show do something amazing, it's like it's like covered the entire surrounding area with just his foot. Which, by the way, it's kind of funny that he uses his foot for ice, but his hand for fire.
Why is that ironic?
Well, not very ironic. It's just kind of surprising. I've solved this before, but it's kind of weird that it kind of makes you wonder if could he light the ground on fire with his foot? And the same thing for his ice. Could he use his hand for ice?
I think yeah, I would imagine so, right? Why wouldn't he?
I don't know. I mean, he's only been putting his foot down and covering the entire area in ice, turning into the North Pole.
Did he touch ice once? That is interesting. That you're right, though. He wields it in a weird way.
I mean, but the thing for his quirk specifically states the user lacks the ability to manipulate it, which is something very odd to put into words. As he lacks the ability to manipulate it, almost like they're insinuating he should be able to.
Hmm.
But you would think, considering his father, as I keep bringing this up, Endeavor is a kinetic. I didn't know this, so this is news to me. Which I guess it makes sense why he's able to. But wait a minute. No, wait a minute. Endeavor manipulates the fire to make prominence burn. Shoto was about to do it before he got hit in the head. In theory, he should be able to manipulate the ice. I guess he just doesn't, or he can't. I'm gonna give him the benefit that maybe he can't. Because he did mention that for a long time he had just been reflexively using ice. Because it's been ingrained into his being from day one. Because he hated his father. So it's quite possible that maybe what you're looking for he just can't do yet. Which at the end of the day is disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. But maybe he can't do it yet. Maybe at some point he would be able to do it, but he can't do it yet. I don't know how that makes you feel, but I think maybe that's what it is. Because that prominence burn
It's an
thing
interesting.
is a
What benefit would it?
kinetic.
What benefit would it have him if he did it? I mean, it makes sense that you would want to touch the surface you're affecting with ice, which is very often the ground, because they usually put him in situations where he's standing in open area. Maybe if he was able to touch something, he could channel the ice from there. Like maybe he just can't create it in the middle of the air. But
I figured he couldn't because every time he does it, I mean, the reflex thing that he does, he literally braces his feet. It's the one thing he does all the dang time when he. Because for whatever reason, if you look at his foot as the ice is being created, there's a thin line from like the base of his foot that shoots out, and it gets wider as it goes further out.
yeah,
But maybe a lot of it has to do with the fact that he doesn't truly understand his quirk all that well, and it just comes from a lack of being around his mother and his father trying to teach him how to use this really overpowered move that he isn't prepared for yet. Because I don't know. I mean, as you can tell, it doesn't look like he understands his fire quirk all that much anyway. Because anytime he's using it, all it's really doing is covering his fist, his shoulder, part of his like waist, some of his leg, and covers some of his foot. Like it looks really cool, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really have any real practical use. And he tried using a move that it took him too long to be able to prepare the move, unlike his father, who was able to shoot it off almost immediately. Like for a reason, Endeavor was able to build up the heat much faster than his son can. Might have come from a lack of training in that department too, but it also kind of makes you wonder, like, why is it that he's reflexively shooting nice from his hip versus shooting it from his hand, which should be a lot more beneficial to use it from his hand than
right.
stomp on the ground and cause the entire like area to be covered in ice, which that's practical too, but as you saw before, it didn't really do him any good here in an area that is like surrounded in buildings. He shouldn't be able. He shouldn't be relying on a move like that. I guess that's what we're learning here. As cool as a move that is, he shouldn't be relying on a move that covers the entire area nice, because that could be dangerous too.
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't the right move this time because it just made bait for Mudman. It took a flat surface and made it a whole palette for Mudman to do whatever he wanted with, so.
Speaking of Mudman,
But,
I like to point out, after the kick that Ida laid on him, his face is the creepiest thing ever. It's like, I think there's a reason why he wears a mask.
yeah, it clearly is. Again, though, the person that controls the arena is the one that wins. It's every single fight so far. The arena has been the deciding factor on it, not necessarily the fighters. It's how they use the arena.
Yeah, that's true. I guess as we get close to the end of the episode, second episode that we're reviewing here,
Mhm.
essentially we now Drill Man is in jail on 1A side, and we got 1B where Tailman's in their jail. Pretty much almost everybody is knocked out except for Pony and Shoji, who this is the part where he should have had something up his sleeve. Like, I mean, yeah, he couldn't expect this. He couldn't expect somebody to outsmart him by putting them in the air. At the same time, I really feel like I almost wondered if he could like. I wonder what the limit of how many hands he could make is. Because maybe he could have Spider-Man did or something like that. I have no idea.
I suppose so. I think there are liabilities too, though. I think when he makes another limb, like he risks losing it, and it's kind of a pickle
He did get
thing
his
where he
arm
can
cut
make a
off,
lot of limbs, but
didn't
he they weaken them.
I think he did get an arm cut off at some point, didn't he?
Yeah, he's had limbs cut off, but they're just as much a weakness as a strength. If you've got more than you can manage, it's got to be hard to manage like 6 limbs. Then it probably doesn't improve things so much as just getting your own way.
Yeah, I wish there was something that like he could have done. Maybe he could have flown. I have no idea. I mean, the skin in between. I feel like the skin in between would have been like he could have flying scrolled it. That would be an interesting thing to see him attempt to fly and squirrel it, but maybe that wouldn't have worked either.
I feel like no.
It would have been funny to see him.
It would have been funny to see for sure.
I don't know. Like, I mean, at this point, like as we get close to the episode, pretty much Pony flies up in the air and takes 2 of her teammates, so Shoji couldn't take any of one of them, and takes I think it's Todoroki that she has in her hands. I forget. I think it might have been Todoroki that she has in her hands. Yeah, it was Todoroki, and she just ends up flying in the air because she gauges that because who she's carrying, she can't move fast enough to be able to put Todoroki in jail. So she just waits the time out, which is I think is the first time we see a time limit.
Mm-hmm.
So she wastes the time out and pretty much ends up this entire match in a tie. I figured this was gonna happen, but I wasn't sure. Which the next 2 matches mean much more now than they did in the past. Depending on what happens in the next match with Bakugo's group, and the other group, and then the next match, like either Team B could be in the lead or Team A could. But the possibility of this entire modular tournament ending in a tie is becoming more and more prevalent.
I think it's going to have to be whatever happens. It's going to be Deku's team that makes the final decision. They have to have his battle relevant, and he's going last, so they're going to have to make sure that he's the height of the tension, just for plot purposes.
I guess I don't really remember. Like I said before, I did read this tournament arc, but I don't remember much at this point. Now I'm at the seat of my pants, and I'm trying to figure out seat of my chair, should I say. Trying to figure how this is gonna go because I don't remember. But I think that's about it. I guess before you do, one of the new characters introduced, a girl with its sharp teeth. I think her name is, what's her name again? I forgot her name. Um, I'm waiting for her to pop up on the in the episode here. I guess we talk about like each one of them is now like figuring out what they did wrong. Todoroki's saying that he should have been able to react much faster. He made it so that Ida had to be the one to save everybody. Ida is saying that he should have been faster. You know, he should have been able to move quickly enough to be more effective. I mean, everybody's like reflecting what they did, which is a good thing. I mean, they're all gonna become like effective heroes. Even Mudman's like he's saying that their speed and his fire was the problem that he needed to be able to take care of. It's kind of funny to see someone like that. That he is still a creepy character design. You can see like his skin is so tight on his skull that you just see his teeth. I'm sorry.
You ordered the wrong size.
Oh dear. And we see Momo cackling because he's saying they're all gonna lose because the next person they're gonna fight is difficult. Oh yeah, her name is Tokage. The person that was recommended, that second person in the group that was recommended was Tokage. Setsuna Tokage. And Bakugo's gonna be fighting her, I guess, is what he's gonna be doing because we see him grinning really, really evilly.
You know what I appreciated about her costume?
What?
The way it's drawn with the dots in the animated, it reminds me of old school comic art where they did everything in dots like that. And it's kind of a throwback to that old school comic art that you'd see like way back in the day, like when they were doing like the old way of printing, color comic, like mass produced comics.
I mean, that makes sense. I always thought that was scales, but maybe it's not.
It might be, but it's just the artwork. When you look at it, it has that throwback feeling of like retro comics, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that's actually an interesting way to look at that. Actually, I always thought it's just scales, but
I mean, it could be both. It could be scales, but just the way it's drawn to me feels that way, and I think that's on purpose that they did that.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, he chose designs. He drew characters on purpose like that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess with
Well, then
that was.
he's had it in mind because he had the other guy that attacks with comic book, onomatopoeia.
I guess that would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I guess that's the end of the episode. I didn't really watch the ending of this one mainly because it was the next fight. So, hey. I guess we're gonna move on now to Shaman King's episodes 3 and 4 because we were supposed to do it last week, but we didn't. So we're gonna review them now.
Hey Jeremy.
Hmm?
Do you want to break this up into a part 1 and part 2? Because I'm not feeling great. I think it'd be great for me if we had like a part 2 if the other thing's canceled tomorrow. Does that work for you?
I mean, you will see. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. I mean, yeah. Anyway.
What could be any night this week. I can do it, but right now I'm feeling like kind of sick. If you've noticed, I haven't talked a lot. Is that okay with you?
I mean, I will see what tomorrow then. I mean,
I have all 4 episodes watched, so if you just pick a night, if you're just like, let's do it tonight, I think I can do it any night this week.
okay. Flip that was, I guess, a good segue. I guess we're gonna, wait, where? How long?
Sorry about that. I wanted to cut in before we dove into it because I am looking forward to talking about Shaman King with you. But it's 4 episodes and it's 10:30 and I'm not feeling good. And I think
we're just gonna review 2 episodes, but episodes 3 and 4, because I think we reviewed episodes 1 and 2 at this already. I think. Yeah, we did. But I mean, if you wanna,
I think
I
I
mean,
kind
we
of
could just push it to next week.
I'm kind of
because
nice
we'll just be revealing 1 episode of My Hero at that point anyway, if worst comes to worst.
Yeah, do you want to do that?
I mean that'll work. I mean, there's only 1 episode of My Hero coming out this week anyway, unless there's a break. I don't know. considering the weird time that the show came on this year.
If there's a break, it's still really good because then we have 2 episodes to do.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware. I was just kind of speaking out loud, trying to get my brain thoughts out. But I mean, sure. I'm trying to like keep going at least till the minute passes over to an hour long. But maybe not. It's probably not a good idea. I'm feeling dead space with my voice. That's probably really grating to everybody else. With that, we're gonna.
I could talk about how I feel.
It's probably not good.
So I had this burrito taco meat for dinner, and no, I'm kidding.
And I was gonna try to see if you can't go to an hour, but you know what? I'm gonna just for Jock's sake, because I know he wants to go lay down. We're gonna end off here. If we come back tomorrow, then sure. But if not, we'll just compound. You know what? I'm gonna push it to next week. I mean, it's like we already kind of offset anyway. We talked about 2 episodes of anime this week. We're gonna overload. Because I'm trying to figure this whole anime thing out because next year Dragon Ball Super was supposed to come out with another movie. I know we're going to talk about that this year once we have the time, so we're just going to end it off here.
That's
See you
gonna be
guys.
exciting.
Yeah, we'll probably throw a promo. Let's talk about this podcast episode in, but we'll talk about that later. See you guys. Whatever.
All right.
Bye.
See